There is something happening in the silver market. We've been seeing hints of it for quite a while now, but now it's right out in the open about what central banks are starting to notice with silver. Let's talk about it as we explore. One of the biggest arguments for stacking gold compared to silver is that central banks hold it. Be your own central bank. But we can be our own central bank with silver too, even if central banks choose not to stack it. And right now, most of them do not, except for Russia. I'm getting into a piece here from Gainesville that talks about this, and this is quite intriguing and could lead to a new trend as we're starting to see shifts in silver supply and more people noticing silver as its price continues to creep up. So before I get into that too much, well, you know how important silver is. The folks at Summit Metals do too. And they have some very competitive prices there, especially if you are new to their website. You can get a good deal if you put in the code new customer at checkout with their essentials deal, 5 ounces of silver at spot. So check them out at summitmetals.com. Now, central banks are virtually absent from the silver market, especially in the past 20 plus years, even more. We don't see central banks stack silver. But we have seen one historic exception over the past year. Russia has become the first nation to explicitly announce silver purchases for state reserves during the current precious metals bull market, allocating $535 million over 3 years for silver. This groundbreaking move comes as central banks continue their gold buying spree, purchasing over 1,000 tons annually since 2022. While completely ignoring silver, creating a stark disparity that may signal an unprecedented investment opportunity. The timing is critical as silver is facing its 5th consecutive year of supply deficits, with industrial demand hitting record levels of 680.5 million ounces in 2024, while COMEX inventories plunge to 15-year lows. Now, I was a little skeptical about Russia's central bank actually buying silver, or if they're just having strategic reserves, because we know that's happened in the past, but we're not seeing quite as much of that lately. But to some extent, nations do have reserves of silver for their silver coins, their collector coins, and the bullion products, for the nations that have them. But nonetheless, it sounds like this may be tied to the central bank of Russia, as it is state reserves. Now, the relationship between central banks and silver has been one of abandonment for well over a half a century, following the crime of 1873 when the United States demonetized silver and the final exit of silver from the monetary system after Nixon ended the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1971. Central banks systematically eliminated silver from their reserves. The U.S. Strategic Silver Stockpile, which was established in 1968 with 165 million ounces, was completely depleted by 2002 after being used to suppress silver prices during the Hunt brothers' attempted market corner back in 1980. For at least 20 years, no major central bank held meaningful silver reserves, which is a dramatic shift from the era when the United States, India, and Mexico all maintained substantial silver holdings. But Russia's 2024 historic decision to include silver in state reserves represents the first crack in central banking's decade-long silver avoidance. As part of its draft federal budget for 2025 through 2027, Russia allocated 51.5 billion rubles, which equates to about $535 to $538 million for precious metal purchases, explicitly including silver, for the first time alongside gold, platinum, and palladium. So it sounds like they may get various different reserves, palladium and platinum as well, the PGMs, which would make sense considering that they are the second largest producing nation of platinum and palladium. So Russia, the world's 8th largest silver producer at 38.5 million ounces annually, appears to be leveraging its domestic production as part of a broader strategy to reduce dollar dependence following Western sanctions. Industry analysts suggest this move could drive silver prices up 50% within 24 months, particularly if other nations follow the lead. Now, it is pretty fascinating to see what's been going on because, Russia is under sanctions, and likely they may have very little choice but to utilize its silver, since many other nations aren't buying it from them, except for maybe some of the Western nations. But China probably doesn't need it. They produce a lot of their own silver. But then again, that import from us a lot of unrefined silver. So it wouldn't be surprising if they are importing some. But why do central banks usually avoid silver? Well, it makes sense that they would under normal circumstances, because it requires 80 times more storage than gold. And the other thing is that over half of it is consumed by industry. And it does lack liquidity infrastructure. And we also see more volatile price movements. So it is understandable why that is usually avoided by central banks. But in 2024, there's 1,086 tons purchased of gold, and that's the third consecutive year above 1,000 tons for gold. And Poland has been adding about 90 tons in and of itself for 2024. And now Russia's strategic move saw this $535 million allocation over a 3-year period, and it does explicit silver reserves announced as part of a de-dollarization strategy. Now, the silver market faces unprecedented supply-demand imbalance that central banks have largely ignored. Global silver has experienced deficits for 4 consecutive years, with 2024's shortfall reaching 182 million ounces. The difference between 1.03 billion ounces of supply and 1.21 billion ounces of demand. The Silver Institute projects a cumulative deficit of 663 million ounces from 2022 to 2024, which is the largest structural shortage in decades. So that is going to get the attention, I think, to some of these central banks, as there's a potential that they may be hedging themselves in a way and diversifying with silver. Will other central banks notice? Well, I'm not sure, but it'd be very interesting to see if they do, if they will follow the lead of Russia. I think in some ways it may not be a bad idea to have a little bit. Maybe not a whole lot, but to further diversify themselves, central banks may want to look at silver, because remember, for most of history, it has traded as money as well as ornamental and other applications. Right now, it is the most diverse metal on the periodic table with over 10,000 uses, but nonetheless, it is a metal that has value, and we're seeing that with multiple years of deficits, at least according to the Silver Institute. Now, industrial consumption drives this imbalance. As we know, solar panel production has seen a 20% annual growth, requiring 232 million ounces. Electric vehicles is accelerating at a dramatic rate as well. Right now, it needs 80 million ounces. 5G infrastructure is continuing to expand rapidly, and AI data centers is the newest demand source for silver, and that is going to explode as well. And the other thing as well with silver is the industrial consumption pretty much is a permanent fixture for silver. It's something we've got to understand here. Global mine production remains flat at 850 to 900 million ounces annually. Critically, 80% comes as a byproduct from lead, zinc, copper, and gold mining, meaning silver supply cannot easily respond to price signals. And then there's also a crisis at the COMEX, with registered silver available for delivery, which has plummeted to just 23.1 million ounces. That's a 15-year low, folks. Some analysts suggest actual deliverable supply could be 50% lower due to long-term holdings. The new primary silver discoveries have become increasingly scarce, with only a handful of significant finds in the last decade. This suggests future supply will continue to rely heavily on byproduct mining, reinforcing the current supply inelasticity. And notwithstanding, there is a potential massive silver deposit found in Poland that I've discussed on the channel before, but we've not heard much about that. And, with sample drilling and the like for a while. And I tell you what, silver so far right now, as I record this video, is up yet again. It's only 30 cents shy of $37 an ounce right now. It could recapture that soon in the, quote, summer doldrums, which we may not see this year. As I'm actually quite surprised to see that it's occurring here with silver. And by the way, platinum is now over $1,400 an ounce. Yeah, I tell you what. And I know people don't watch those platinum videos very often, but I'm going to continue to do them because I think it's pretty important. It's a massive bull run for platinum. Now, we know the gold to silver ratio is another factor, which means that silver really is a deal. And if central banks start to accumulate it, even if a few central banks do it, and even just get just a little bit, I think that it could have an impact on the price. Because the historic average has been just over 40 to 1 over the silver's long course of history. And that's where we're talking going way back. And that's really skewed for sure. But the current range is obviously between 80 and over 90. And so that implies some upside for silver. Now there's other things that we have experts that have forecasted explosive growth. And usually these individuals I take as a grain of salt, but the window really is closing. Russia's unprecedented move to acquire silver for its state reserves is a critical signal for a market poised for explosive growth. Coupled with a severe structural supply deficit and burgeoning industrial demand, silver represents a rare opportunity. While central banks universally flock to gold during periods of uncertainty, their historic absence from silver may prove to be a costly oversight. So they very well may see this situation as an opportunity to acquire physical silver at the prices where they're at right now as a bargain, especially considering how fast it's going up. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out if these other nations will start to recognize and follow Russia's lead here. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. For most of us, we're already on that train. We are our own central bank. We've been holding silver for quite a while. So there you go. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.